the ancestors that come from these lands, the 19 pueblos around us. And we also want to thank our future ancestors that are here with us tonight too, namely Dr. Corrine Sanchez, and her mother is in the room as well, Kathy. So we'd like to let you all know that Indigenous Ways is more than ever committed to dedicating and bridging cultures globally together through any way we can, whether it's in a circle around a fire, whether it's under a tree, whether it's at a lake, by the river, in a big city, in a hotel room, at a Starbucks, or on a virtual events platform called Virtual Events Indigenous Ways Talking Circle. So we want to bring people together because we want to drop walls of separation more than ever today, because all our blood is red and we are five-fingered people. We have minds that are rational, that can get us in blessings and can get us in trouble. So tonight we're really, really looking forward to our evening. Our live events also are recorded and archived on our website. So if your friends and family don't see it tonight, we have a wealth of historical archives of intense Indigenous and Two-Spirit wisdom.
And you can find that at IndigenousWays.org virtual events. Now, what's really cool about this, I think, and I'm pretty excited about this, the very first Indigenous Ways virtual events was kicked off by the beautiful Elder Kathy Sanchez, who is the mother of Dr. Corrine Sanchez, that it will be with us tonight. And all of that, as Tash was saying, is archived. Today is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time now, we have the Wisdom Circle, and on Fridays we have the concert events honoring our Indigenous, Native American, LGBTQIA performers. So that's what's going to be happening on Friday.
And we're so blessed tonight to have
very
favorite person on planet Earth, Dr. Corrine Sanchez.
Whoa!
Dr. Corrine Sanchez is a powerhouse. She's fearless. She speaks her truth, and she speaks it in such an eloquent way that she travels all over the world on behalf of Tewa Women United. And what Tewa Women United has been able to do over the last 25 plus years is to open the rug and what's underneath that rug in our communities and say, let's pull it out, you guys. Let's talk about it, you guys. It's painful, it hurts, but let's bring brothers in, let's bring sisters in, grandmothers, grandfathers, two-spirits, everybody in, pregnant women, pregnant teenagers, and let's make a path to unity and togetherness and the resilience that we always are. And to me, that's what Corrine is all about.
Absolutely.
So tonight, we're going to get some wicked words of Corrine. So brace yourself, buckle up, hold on to your seats, rock it. Corrine, go for it.
Let's give it up for Dr. Corrine Sanchez from Tewa Women United. Thanks, Corrine.
Oh, I love that introduction. Thank you so much. And thank you for everyone that is taking time out of your evening to spend here with us tonight. And as mentioned, my mother, Elder Kathy Sanchez, is here with me. She's off camera now, and maybe we can coax her to come on camera a little bit later. Tonight, I am going to be sharing with you a project, one of our newest initiatives in Tewa Women United, which is our Healing Justice and Radical Hope project, which is about radical self-care, community care, and healing. And so, yeah. And if you have any questions, I am technically challenged at the moment. Internet has been unstable, and I can't really see the chats that are coming in. So I'm going to depend on Tosh and Elena to read out questions if you have any. And you're more than welcome to interrupt at any point and ask those questions. And yeah, we'll just see how this story sharing goes tonight. And again, I'm honored. And just to say, Ubiak Gindi, I'm really appreciative, and I want to lay down respects. If I offend anybody with what I'm saying, I'm really doing this so that we can open our minds, hearts, bodies, and spirits to think about how we move forward collectively, as was mentioned, as collective humanity in this work that we do on ourselves, as well as in our families and in our communities, to bring about that transformative power and energy. And so I am going to be doing a short PowerPoint presentation. And I think I can start now, right, Tosh?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, now let's go. So the slide I hope that you're seeing right now is the healing justice, our path forward. You'll see our logo, Te Women United. We're also changing our logo in the next couple of months. We've gone through some transformation, and I think as we enter different stages of our life, there are ways to mark that. I'm also transitioning my name, so I'll share a little bit about my Indian name and then where my current journey is in my life transitions, as well as transitions within the organization itself. So we're 30 years old. Te Women United is 30 years old. We've been doing healing, transformative work in our community since the late 80s. This organization was founded by women from our community that had a concern about what they were seeing and how they wanted to change and make a difference. It so happens that many of those women were my relatives. So my aunts, my great aunts, my mother, as well as the collective voice across Tewa communities here. And so our current logo and our future logo will still maintain this image of the 6 women that you see sitting in circle or representing community life. If you look deeper, you'll see the pottery symbol in the back, and then the community village, as well as the evergreens, which are really used in our prayers and our dances. And in the center is the corn and the different directions, right? North, south, east, west, above and below. So really representative of a lot of imagery and spiritual practice and guides that continue to inform our work. And my mother is a beautiful artist. She's also a potter and an illustrator or a drawer. So this came from her, and we've digitalized it here, which she does not necessarily like. But that's the way we move in technology right now. But the 6 women represent the 6 Tewa speaking communities that exist here in New Mexico. And we're part of the 23 tribal nations that also exist here in New Mexico. So 19 Pueblos, and then the Jicarilla Apache nations and the Dene Nation. So just, thinking about how all of our indigenous communities that are here. And Tewa Women United is a translation from We On Gidimu, which is like we are one. And so the translation in English for us was united. And so going and building from there. And I am grateful to the Pueblo PhD program, where I was able to get my doctorate from, graduated in 2015 with fellow Pueblo classmates from across New Mexico. And I was blessed to be able to share the story and look at how Te Women United formed and the philosophy behind our work. So on this next slide, you'll see I was in Aotearoa, so connection to Elena and her dad and her family and her community, and was out there almost 15 years ago, really with the sexual assault and domestic violence programs. And they introduced themselves by their mountain, their water, their people. And so in that respect, I have here a picture of the Black Mesa, which is Tuñocuyo in our Tewa way. And it's right in my backyard, a place to really give reverence and breath to. And in the picture really represents what my mom talks about, is the inner and outer, the breath, the rain. You can see the mist of that replenishing and nurturing. So we get our guidance from the cosmos, we get our guidance from our inner being, and also from our Naochokuyo, which is our Earth Mother. And the next picture, figure number 3, is the big tree, which is a cottonwood tree. And so my Indian name is Ka Perepovi, which is cottonwood fluff. So I was born in June 23rd is my birthday, and all the cotton fluff is all over blowing. And so really, we are named to emulate those relatives and what they give in our community. And so really honored. And I was talking about transitions, right? So I am transitioning. I'm at that stage of perimenopause, I guess, early menopause. And so I'm now also taking on another Indian name that was given to me, which is Okua Pepovi, which is about the flower on the stick of our sacred deities. And so, yeah, so I feel like I'm maturing and I'm shifting, and I'm going to be maybe utilizing both and also leaning more into that middle realm of experience. And then the figure 2 is a picture of my nieces. And so I'm an aunt to my nieces and my nephews, my cousins, a lot of relatives. And I think they're the light for me. They're the joy. And they also represent the ways that our healing has been allowed to happen in our family, as well as in the work that we're doing. And so some beautiful transformations in that. Jessamine, who's the baby right here, she's now 4 years old, and as rambunctious and inquisitive as ever, and really brings that youthfulness, that reminder of how we need to have these energies in our lives. In Tewa Women United, I've been blessed to really look at, for myself, I feel like my journey in Tewa Women United is as this, graduating from high school, seeing this circle be formed, and these women who are coming into their power and who were addressing issues that was impacting them as well as their families and their communities, whether that was their path to sobriety, whether that was their addressing violence that was directed at them within their intimate partner relationships, or community violence and also societal violences. And from this came a trauma healing rock vision. My mother, who I feel is just really connected and the intellectual, really. I may have gotten my PhD, but she's really the intellectual force in my influence, as well as other scholars that have come through Tewa Women United as I was growing up. And so Dr. Maria Yellowhorse Braveheart, Dr. Eduardo Duran, Bonnie Duran, Dr. Bonnie Duran, and a lot of other women of color, people of color, intellectuals that really helped lay the theory. We're talking about the theory, but we were actually living it. And how do you integrate that theoretical with the practical, with the action? And I feel we are able to do that within our work at Tewa Women United. And my mother is always asking for guidance in her sleep space, also hearing from our ancestors and our spirit guides. And so this trauma healing rock really came to her in a dream so that we could share about the things that we were learning about in Circle together, which was historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, individual complex trauma, and how all of that impacts us on a mind, heart, body, spirit level, and what the research was saying on a cumulative level. But what we talk about is an exponential growth of that trauma, and the representation within the trauma rock exercise is seeing that exponential growth through generations as we're story sharing and moving that, so that we can have a visual for our young people who may have these feelings of anger, of fear, of nightmares and things like that. And so in the sealing of the rocks in these plastic bags as we go through generational lines is oftentimes sealing in that guilt, that anger, and the shame that can suffocate us, that can lead to disconnection and isolation in our families and our communities. And so we have that particular visuals as we talk in our programs. And so for me, the story comes, okay, sorry, my mom's like, slow down. So for me, the story comes from this matriarchal lineage of women in my family. And so when I share my story within the Trauma Rocks, it's the passing from my great-grandmother, who you see here, great-great-grandmother, who was Maria Martinez, a very well-known potter from our community, a midwife, a healer, a very influential woman within her community and outside her community, someone who was monolingual, and then also spoke a little bit of English, And then my great grandmother Santana Martinez, who is also a potter, and my grandmother Anita Martinez. So this really strong lineages of women that were potters, that were healers, and that were also influenced by different phases and transitions of economic systems, educational systems, wars that went through. And then my mother, who is was a teacher in our community, retired educator, really connected to my great great grandmother, and learning those lessons and seeing, and has been my interpreter for Tewa and Tewa values that come, as I'm not a fluent speaker of Tewa, and really helping to also maneuver between the masculine and feminine, and the energy flows and what that means. And also because of her intellect and her interpretations of science and the incorporation in our indigenous knowledge has just been a really powerful force. And then myself as a survivor of child sexual abuse, a survivor of different types of violences directed at me, and then my nieces and my sister as well, and then Tewa Women United, where a lot of that was opening to that healing. And so I want to talk about how this led to, I think our work has always been grounded in healing and spirituality, the strength of our culture, the strength that comes from our community, but also with that place of really understanding how systemic ways that we've been eroded in our voice and in our power through genocide, through colonization, through different tactics that have been utilized against us as peoples. And so healing justice is like, how do we incorporate healing within all the movements that we're involved in? And Tewa Women United is a multi-issue organization, which means we focus on environmental justice, reproductive justice, and gender justice. The holistic way of the things that are impacting us as women in our lived experiences today, and influence our narratives, influences our stories, influences the lenses from which we see. And so we were fortunate to be doing direct service for sexual assault since the early 1990s. My background is in child sexual abuse and addressing child sexual abuse, sexual violence, have developed multidisciplinary teams, have developed protocols on investigations, have looked at different healing aspects in that particular lens of community, family, and what does accountability and responsibility look like. And our environmental justice work was foundational to our being, because we're downwind from Los Alamos National Laboratory, and seeing the erosion to our land, our air, our water, our relatives, right? Those spiritual energy that exist that is not really talked about when we talk about contamination and cleanup and accountability for that from Los Alamos National Laboratory. And then our reproductive justice. So we've developed a doula program. We are now training doulas in our community. What does that mean as women? For us to be able to talk across the lifespan of our experience as women, from the violence we may experience to our reproductive and co-creation processes, not only in our home and our family, but in our intellect and other ways that we show up in the world. And really talking about that multiverse, multiplicity of literacies, of presence, of energy, and really grateful again to Kathy and other elders that have really grounded us in being able to understand that our power and strength is in our mobility and our fluidity. So the mobility to move towards things that are healthy and well for us, and move back in and move back out. The fluidity of power, so that we know that our energies as male and female, as these masculine and feminine, are really fluid and should move freely. And what is represented in our physical being may not necessarily be the energies that really are represented within and without. So really looking at LGBTQ inclusivity, diversity, and understanding that diversity is really what is the strength in our ecosystems is diversity. And so monocropping and these other environmental issues and how they affect our community. And also really looking at the interconnectedness of our being in this world. So we may be here in Tewa land, Tewa Toa place being, but we're connected to others across this globe through the breath and lungs of our Mother Earth, through the water streams, the blood streams, and really to understand that our responsibility may be here, but the impact is also out. And so talking about justice and healing and what does that mean in this multiple ways that we are under attack at times and in this culture of violence. So my mother talks about the culture of violence and looking at the culture of peace. And so our journey now is how do we journey through these multi-dimensions to touch on that culture of peace so that we can continue to reclaim that and bring it forward into this moment in time that we're seeing and living in now, where we're seeing violences that we thought were already gone and past, resurfacing around racism and anti-Blackness and anti-immigrant, anti-Indigenous, and how do we move and heal and address that, and also this anti-woman, right? This misogyny against women, the hatred of women in different aspects. And so we undertook this healing journey, healing justice. We were fortunate to get funding through Move to End Violence, the Novo Foundation, and this Radical Hope grant. And so really looking at what has sustained us as Tewa women, but as Indigenous peoples through these different phases of history, phases of the story, phases of the narrative, and how do we move? And so in this particular initiative, we're looking at 5 circles, and I'll share, I'm gonna share a little bit of what we're learning from those 5 circles. And we did our first, the project is with close to 20 organizations on a local to a national level, and also an engaging men and boys circle. So these 18 to 20 organizations that are involved, we've had face-to-face meetings, circles, talking about what healing means to us, talking about what justice means to us, talking about what self-care is, and how do we see that in our work that we're doing, in our communities, on ourselves and in our families. And then really trying to think of like, how do we look at this overall concept within all of these different movements that sometimes do not talk to each other. I think we're getting more and more integrated, but as I was growing up in the organization, there were really separate funding streams. There were really separate circles and groups of peoples that were necessarily working on that. I think we're getting to a lot better place around what we call opere, which is really braiding and bringing together and strengthening this. So what you see in front of you now is we do graphic documentation. And so from these circles, as we're talking, our graphic illustrator, who is this amazing Muslim woman, is from New Mexico, is a local person from our community. And so she's drawing as our groups are talking. And this one is our local partners. So in our local partner circle, we have representation from environmental programs, reproductive justice programs, gender justice programs, Indigenous programs, to mainstream programs, to you name it. It's a mix. And we've been working with these different organizations for over 10, 15 years, and really sharing, kind of talking about like, how do we integrate this healing? And I hope that you're reading this. I'm not going to necessarily read through, but we were looking for facilitators that could help us co-create this process. We were looking for evaluators that we could co-create with as we're looking at these different aspects of this journey with us. And so we have groups of facilitators. So we have young organizers doing young people's organizing out of Boston, which is Youth Build. youth works, listening works. And so we have 2 facilitators from there. We have Becky Masaki, who is a mentor and guide for me and has done a lot of work in gender justice from the Asian American Islander perspective, and has a really wealth, like my mother is just like that person that has done this for across generations, across timeframes, and comes with that really heart place approach. And then we have Together for Brothers, which is a young men of color organization here in New Mexico. And so we have facilitators from there also helping in this co-creation process. And also our partners, right? So our partners in these different circles are also co-creators in this journey, in that they have experience and expertise, and that we learn from each other as we go. And there was no roadmap for us to do this, right? We're trying to figure out, like, how do we do this, and how do we look at our work and the lens of our work with all of these different connections and peoples. So we have North Stars, youth works bring to us that all people are good, all people are hurt, and all people can heal. And that really resonated with us because we really believe in that transformative power to heal and to transform situations. As survivors, we know that we have these dark experiences, and we can take from that ways to transform and help others open to their healing journey or open to different perspectives. And so again, we really believe in our ability for all of us to heal, and that each one of us, whether we have degrees or not, whether we're formally trained or not, have that ability to help another heal and support them in that journey or open them to that journey. So guiding questions for this work was, what is healing justice to you? How might radical self-care contribute to sustainable change? And this was something we've looked at throughout our work as Te Women United, in the ways that burnout happens or can happen within organizations, the overwhelm, the wins that may be long line, long vision. And so how do we continue to maintain that hope? How do we continue to maintain that optimism that we can reach that place, right? That we can reach that place of healing and unity and collective humanity as a whole, and recognize each other as sacred beings, regardless of the color of our skin. I don't want to be talking about like melting pot. I want us to really know that that type of relationality is often hard and challenged as we go through different traumas in our life. And how do we maintain and hold love and possible forgiveness and these other aspects in this way? So, so self-care can definitely be yoga and can be bubble baths, because I do that, right? But it's also a deeper journey than that. And how do we come into these courageous conversations with multiracial, multicultural people with different experiences and share our authentic self, and not always armor up and shield ourselves, but maintain that vulnerability. And so this is our masculinity circle, so our engaging men and boys circle, because we've been doing this work of gender justice and sexual violence as women speaking out. And we also know that a lot of that violence is directed to us from our own men, not just from the outside non-Native people and society, but also from our own family members, our own community members. And so how can we engage them in not a call out culture and not a shaming way, but a way that really opens us up to having dialogue, and that is real, and that holds that, what I call, or what we call that loving accountability and responsibility towards one another, the Sige Mavei, which is a core value of ours, that we always come from our heart, that we attach our heart to these different issues, and that we speak from our heart in that grounding place. And we know that love isn't just, squishy and all of that, it's also firm and hard. And so, how do we continue to hold this accountability and responsibility to one another? And then our state partners, again, this is a group, and the Engaging Men and Boys is also a group from local to national individuals that are doing this work in our community, or that are trying to figure out how to do this work in our community. Our state partners are those that are doing work on reproductive justice, environmental justice, issues with a broader base. And so we have, I think, a really strong history of networking and reaching out and building our relationality with these organizations. And so we have that circle. I'm trying to see how I'm doing on time, and also try to slow down.
Just doing a sign language thing.
Okay. So healing justice in our national partners. So we've been doing this work, environmental justice, reproductive justice, gender justice, on our local community-based level in Rio Arriba County, Española, one of the poorest counties in the state of New Mexico, with our indigenous communities, the 8 northern pueblos in New Mexico, and then having this connection to these national organizations that are convening people on a national level, multiracial, multicultural organizations. And so we have some representation from the Hmong community, the African American community, and they're also represented, our multicultural, multiracial lens is also incorporated in all of our circles. We don't necessarily have a strong Hmong population here in New Mexico, and I feel a really kinship to the Hmong Women's Association and Freedom Inc. If you're not familiar, really check out their work, youth-led organizing, organizing for API and African-American communities, and really looking and diving into that anti-Blackness, as well as Sister Song, which is a reproductive justice organization that we've been involved in since their formation, really. As part of the management circle, and also just maintaining that connection around reproductive justice issues. And oh yeah, so I forgot, I need to go back, and my notes are in this. So what are the themes that are coming out of these circles is, I mentioned vulnerability. So really embracing, I'm sorry, I had to go back because my notes are in the slide thing, is about embracing vulnerability and not looking at vulnerability as a weakness, but as a strength. If you've ever read Brene Brown and other researchers that talk about vulnerability, it's about that ability to maintain that softness and authenticity to those parts, so that we're not armoring up and shutting people out and closing down. The way trauma works is sometimes it isolates us, it hardens us, and we want to be able to maintain that vulnerability, touch that softness, come back out. So we call that inha in our traditional ways, like touching the heart, right? Your breath, with your breath, and all of these things. To be courageous is one that's also come up, because these conversations that we need to have within our families and our communities need us to be courageous to do them. To say that you've harmed me and caused me harm, and I want some accountability, and this is what accountability looks like for me, to change patterns in our own behaviors of maybe substance use, maybe use of violent language. All of that takes courage. And so we need to be able to practice having courageous conversations with each other. We need to do this in an organizational level, in an interpersonal level, in a societal level. And it's not easy. And it's difficult, and we need to have that ability to do that. Laugh and play. So we know that part of trauma takes away, the pain that you're in, the sadness that you're in, these real mental health chemical releases in our body. And so how can we bring back play and laughter in our work? And as Indigenous communities, I think we do have that tie to humor, and the way that humor moves us with our our different societies that are hold that also responsibility for that humor and lightness in our community, but also lightness that also touches on the dark and the deep stuff. And as a survivor of child sexual abuse, you know, I can speak to how trauma has impacted my ability to really remember kind of what childhood was like, and reclaim a lot of that childhood, which is, you know, how do I bring more laughter and play and joy into my life? And part of that is like letting go of the pain and letting go of these things. And so in our Tewa way, being pa ma peri is that letting go, that releasing, so that you're not holding on and having it cause these repressions and other aspects. And I am not an expert on trauma and its impacts in general, just in my personal experiences, but I feel like I've been able to travel in the place of like not having these memories of my childhood and being really angry and hurt that I don't have, you know, these joyful memories that my siblings may have, but also at the place of accepting that and letting that go of the anger. And so I feel like, again, those transitions that we move through in our life and around the acceptance and the letting go are also lessons that we're learning in this journey of activism, in this journey of addressing racial justice, addressing these different violences and traumas. What's also come up in these conversations and framework is how do we create spaciousness in our lives and in our work? And I remember in my early years of doing this, like our dinner conversations at my family table, because of my parents, they're amazing, powerful people, but it would be really inundated with like, you know, the really activist kind of like, oh, this, you couldn't like watch a movie without dissecting it, right? You couldn't have a conversation without dissecting it and these implications. When I really just wanted to hear how people's day was, like, did you enjoy going shopping? Did you enjoy, and feeling guilty because I couldn't just go and watch a show and not have it be dissected for a lot of these different reasons, but being a way of escape, right? Which is also challenging in our society. But how do we create spaciousness in our work? How do we create that spaciousness in our lives so that we're not facing these different types of burnouts, so that we are saying, I'm struggling right now, I need to take a break. And then how do our organizations and communities respond to that? And as women, we know we have a hard time doing that, of really putting ourselves first. You know, we feel guilty, we feel these different things in our family, like I can do this. And then we come with these different aches and pains and resentments and energy zaps. And so also recognizing that we cannot show up for our families or our communities unless our cup is really full. And so how does that reciprocity work within our family dynamics, our community dynamics, and our work dynamics to ensure that that's happening? And so we do wellness Wednesdays, wellness Thursdays. I think a lot of, and there's also this Healing Justice podcast that I hope I will send Elena the link so you can listen to around what that means for us. And then another theme that came up is really healing so deeply that the earth is cleansed. And that came through all of these different circles, the connection that we have to our Earth Mother, no matter where we are in this world and in this country, and that she gives us the gifts to heal and to cleanse and the cycles in which to do that as well. She is one of the best teachers. And as we look at our Indigenous knowledge of those cycles, of those rituals, of those practices, that really help us to do that deep cleansing and releasing. The other was this professional and personal connection. And, people try to compartmentalize us, try to separate. And there's a way that can be healthy and not healthy. And so really trying to think about how do we do this work in our communities that is so deeply personal and also deeply challenging, if we cannot honestly have those conversations with our family members around sexism, if we can't talk in our tribal communities about patriarchy and heterosexism, and if we can't talk in other communities about anti-Blackness, our communities about anti-Blackness, because we have multiracial, multicultural marriages, relationships, relational activity, and how do we not cause harm to our children by our prejudices and biases and things that we've learned and that internalized oppressions, and really, being able to talk about that. So people also in this work talked about how do we commit to bringing more light into our work. Again, we're dealing with trauma, we're dealing with pain, we're dealing with deaths, we're dealing with grief and loss. And so how can we continue to shine hope and light into those dark spaces without dehumanizing each other, without harming each other further, and talking about that. And this is one of the things that come up for us as Indigenous people doing this work, is that Indigenous people are going to save us. Indigenous people have these rituals and ceremonies, and yes, we do, but every culture and every community has rituals, and individuals are able to create their own rituals. It doesn't just lie the responsibility with one particular group or people. And so we've been talking about how can we co-create ceremony together as multiracial, multicultural, multi-issue organizers and people. How can we, and we do that, and we know that we, in our being as humans, that creativity is something that we need to nurture and that is there for us. And so this co-creation is always possible. And I think in this stage in life and where others are at is, how do we let go? How do we let go of anger, guilt, shame? How do we let go of these hurts and traumas, and find those rituals that allow us to do that, find those ceremonies that allow us to do that collectively across all of our peoples. The other one is and I feel like healing justice is not just a term that it's a term that came out of Black Lives Matter, the allied media social gatherings, and we're taking it, they have a definition and we've added on their spiritual, right? So it's mind, body, heart, spirit. And so again, trusting in prayer, the theme that was coming across these groups is also like trusting in prayer. How do we pray together? And how do we not have that prayer be, go to like this religious aspect, right? But really that spiritual connection, because religion can be this institutionalized oppressive force. And we all experience that in different ways. And then community accountability and community care. How does this self-care also shine out into that community care, community accountability, community responsibility, not just the individual, where individuals connected to the whole. And so how do we continue to think about that in our work as organizers and community people? So I know I'm getting close to time. And so what we've come to in our TWU circle, right, because we have justice sprinkled throughout all of our work, is that really people landed on, they don't like the word justice. We're limited in English to this term justice. And people ask, like, where is the love in that word? It sounds like just us, or just, and so we are diving deeper into conversations around, is it liberation? Again, we're trying to do the best as multilingual people to limit it to this English language. But what are the terms in our traditional languages or our mother tongues that speak to this in a different way than law, than this harsh system that other people have power in and we don't necessarily have power in. And so, yes. So again, and then that just us can also be like, yeah, it's just us, right? As we're in this COVID moment, where we're challenging systems, we're wanting to defund the police, we're wanting to defund these different pieces, then it becomes just us, right? Like every one of us in our community. And so how can we begin to revision and vision and co-create different systems that bring in the healing, that would bring in these different aspects that was shared in our talk. And that really needs our ability to sit together, to converse together, to dialogue together, to dream together, to pray together, so that we can think and open our perspectives to what other ways could be. How can economies shift and change? How can systems that, like police and others, shift and change? And how do we each play a role in that accountability and responsibility? And so I just, think about all the stuff that floats around in my head and my brain and with our work. And my mom's always like, just light the candle, burn the sage, pray, take that breath. So be the breath and be the light. Our communities and our families are our ancestors' greatest gifts, and all their prayers, their strength went into us, and that we can do it and we can do this together. And what COVID is showing us is that we need to be doing this together. Our diversity is our strength, our multiplicity is our strength. And so I'll just end it there and see if there's any questions and answers, or if my mom has anything to add.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much for that,
Thank you so much, Corrine. My jaw's hanging on the ground right now. I was thinking one word, Tosh. You know what? Compassion. Compassion came to me. We can't teach empathy because empathy is a shared happiness, a shared grief, a shared walk, a shared pathway. Compassion is just to go, hey man, teach me so I can know. And that's what I heard tonight. So thank you. Thank you for teaching me so I can know a little bit more how to walk respectfully in your culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Corrine, for the medicine and sharing what you have been doing and leading. One of Corrine's opening words, well, actually several of them, was to be brave, to be courageous. And one of the things that I really appreciated, Corrine, that you shared about was as a collective, the importance of healing justice. How do we do that? And it's this collective, not sure what we're doing or where we're going, but in that trust. So the vulnerability, embracing that. Looking at our traumas, that last slide that you had, looking at our story and then where our story is now, but doing it as a collective. So I just want to thank you so much, and the deep work, not only that you've been doing, what you've been doing and leading in Te Awa Women United, but within multiple communities, because we're looking at in all of our Indigenous beliefs of connectivity, unity. We are connected to everything and everyone. So I'm going to take this time and encourage people who are out in our Zoom platform, if you want to turn on your camera, it's going to be, I want you to take this time and integrate this incredible words. If you've got any questions, or you just need to process on these medicines of what Corrine has said, now's that time while you're coming back in. And if you're on our social networks and you want to share something, just pop something up on the social networks. Actually, what are we looking at? Oh, isn't that funny? It doesn't want to go. I was going to share a screen with the work that we've been doing, but it's not going, so that's quite easy. So anyway, while you're wanting to turn your camera on, now remember we're getting recorded, or if you're in Zoom and you want to pop something in the chat box, whether that's something for Corrine or your own processes, because this is what it is about, being really vulnerable, and this walk that we're doing together, through our ancestors and for our future generations. But I just want to go into what is happening in our Indigenous Ways virtual events.
And on Friday, we have Narissa Bond, and she is a wonderful Black singer, songwriter. She's an activist. She's an educator. She comes from a family. Her mom's like a retired principal from some big school, and she's a very well-informed woman, and she writes accordingly, and she's got a beautiful voice. And this woman sings anywhere and everywhere. We've had her here for some virtual concert, a live concert here, and everybody loved her. And we are so blessed to have, following Narissa next Wednesday, we have Tokala Two Elk. And Tokala Two Elk comes from the Lower Brule, Lakota tribe out of South Dakota. And I've heard a lot of good things about Tokala Two Elk. Our sister Jennifer Forrester urged us to invite Tokala onto our platform. So we need to make the balance happen with brothers and sisters, elders and ancient youth. When I say ancient youth, I mean young people with old souls, like a lot of people I know out there that are millennials and doing the walk right now today. So we're very grateful. And
so all these series are possible because of the sponsors, First Peoples Fund, the City of Santa Fe Arts and Culture Department, the National Endowments of the Arts, the New Mexico Arts. And specifically for the Wisdom Circle, we've also got the sponsors, National Endowments of Humanities and the New Mexico Humanities Council. So we're very grateful to our sponsors, also to our board members, our Indigenous Ways board members. Some of them are on the line tonight. Thank you for your wonderful support, and also our individual donors.
And speaking of our individual donors, our last trip to Black Mountain, also known as Black Mesa, the three communities up there, which my people come from. My grandmother was born there. My mother was born there. Hi, Mom. Mom's here tonight. This was our last trip, and this is our garage, the top picture of just sorting the day before, last Monday. And this is one of 2 U-Hauls that we rented to take up. We had 5 cargoes full of goods to take up, and you see some of the trucks lined all the way down. We were able to give out to 52 families, lots and lots of good stuff, everything from cleaning supplies to tinned meat to canned goods to cleaning supplies, tons of cleaning supplies, masks, and et cetera, et cetera. We had a fabulous team of volunteers that put it all together.
Phenomenal.
The day before, from the goodness of their hearts, that really, really care about our elders on Black Mountain. Of course, there's all ages up there, but mostly elders. And we also are very grateful for our next run. And this is one of our beautiful elders down below. Her name is Jane Ballou with her husband. And her daughter might be on tonight, Lynn Dean. She's a CHR worker, Chinle Health representative. So she's our person that we're going through to get our next run up, which is going to be 2 weeks from yesterday. We're going to be driving back up to Black Mountain, and this time it's going to be all cleaning supplies. We're requested, it's called the Navajo Nation Elders Run, July 14th. And what's really, really, really needed up there is cleaning supplies. So Clorox, bleach, wipes, sanitizers, all that kind of stuff we're going to be accumulating. Water is always welcome. And we're also going to be taking some briefs, adult briefs, also known as pull-ups, mostly medium, mostly large and extra large, I would say. It says small and medium, but I would say if you're going to be donating briefs for adults, pull-ups, do large and extra large and just drop them off.
So one of the things that we're going to be doing, it's only been through the goodness, particularly with what we're in a pandemic, but one of the things that we've been very deeply touched by is the generosity from the community. So a lot of people have come by and dropped goods at our door. People have donated online. If you want to donate, you are able to donate. Here's all the links here. You can go to our website, IndigenousWays.org, donate. There's a postal address, snail mail if you want to do that. But we've changed our date from the 11th of August only because of what's going on in Arizona and the spike.
And before we go on to that, I want to say one good bit of news, everybody, and I hope Lynn Dean's on tonight. Black Mountain COVID camps, where we're going, where there is no running water, guess what? There's no more COVID on Black Mountain as of today. No more COVID on Black Mountain. Let me repeat that. No more COVID on Black Mountain. People have died, people have lost their lives, and the people that have been infected and became sick have recovered. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, and they've got some really, really tight restrictions up there. So this next trip up, it's just going to be me and Elena, and we're going to go PPE as best as we can and just drop off with the CHR, no contact with anybody. We're just going to do a drop. We're going to turn around and drive out. I've got family, relatives. I've got a home site. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. We're getting out of there because we're not wanted. People from the outside should not be going in, but this is essential cleaning that it's desperately needed. So if you can help, please do.
So we're concentrating on the 30 elders that are up there and 75 plus still herding their sheep. That's what the umbrella, we've already got the 30 hats that one of our members has kindly donated to. But in saying that, we're all back, and it's been a time to integrate in this credible medicines that the beautiful Dr. Corrine Sanchez has shared with us tonight. We're going to just leave this open to you. I know there's some people that haven't turned on their cameras in Zoom, which is great. If you've got any questions or comments, put them in the chat box, and the same with social networks. But does anyone who's here wish to have a comment or a question or just processing this incredible amount of information and incredible work that Corrine has been doing?
Hi, Corrine.
Hi, Teresa. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to say hi. Thank you. Thank you for all your work. Really appreciate it. And nice to see your face.
Thank you for your energy. So Teresa and I are connected through the child sexual abuse work and lifetime transformation and healing on that. So great to see you.
Yeah. Carry on.
It's so great to see you.
Hi, girls.
Hey.
Hey, Corrine, I want to say hi too. Thank you so much for your very. I'm always so impressed with how informed and prepared and knowledgeable you are of what you present and just the heart that you put into it, the heart and soul. So it really touched me. And I really like about how you touched about how as women that we have a hard time thinking about ourselves first and caring for ourselves, that we're always like, just trying to take care of others and that nurturing spirit that we have, and just finding the time for the self-care and finding the creativity, giving our time for that creativity so we can really expand within ourselves, how important that is. And I'm really glad that you reminded me of that, because I'm feeling pretty wasted, and I'm just like, I realized I just needed to hear what you said tonight, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. We love you.
Yeah, let me get in here. Thank you.
Oh, see, there's my mama.
Kathy, you taught her well. Kathy, you taught her well.
Very proud. Thank you, everybody, for being doing.
Absolutely. For those people that are watching and who just came in, was the beautiful Elder Kathy Sanchez, which is obviously Corrine's mother. If you've come in, she was the first to hit off our wisdom circle. So if you haven't seen that, please go to the Indigenous Ways virtual events to see. I'm going to say this, Elder Kathy, your archive video is the highest watch video in our archives. Just the medicine about the butterfly vision, people keep watching it over. Even we still see kiddies and people that have been here, some people keep giving reference to that. So thank you so much, both of you, and the extraordinary work that you do. As powerful, powerful women, just deeply, deeply touched.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all. Yes.
Blessings.
All hearts are needed in the work.
Yes.
You want to say anything, Jerry? Awesome.
Oh, really good faces. Yeah.
Hello, thank you for your talk. Whew. I'm still coming through, and what taking place in a healthy way where it wants to go in my heart, my mind, and in my spirit. And I still have chills from some of the things that I've learned. And what Missy said, to find the same thing. I feel the same way as well about taking care of the self and how this new form of thinking that had come through and has changed those automatic, loving, caring thoughts that we were to have at birth in the beginning, and how that has changed. And it just affects everywhere. And I'm here in the Northeast, and I plan on coming back home to New Mexico, where I'm originally from. And there's a part of me that feels still non-inclusive. I've been here 20 years, and still it's constant hierarchical type of thinking that pushes me out of where I don't want to be. And anyway, I'm processing that because it is apparent, and I'm accepting it, and still growing with it. So thank you very much. It's very, very beautiful words. Yeah.
There's a hand raised.
Shell.
Yes. Hi, Dr. Sanchez.
Hello, how are you? Are you in New Mexico, or are you still out there in Massachusetts, or where were you?
I was in Delaware, but I'm here in Santa Fe. And yes, I'm here in the area, and I just wanted to say hi and thank you for all that you do. And make it short. Huh?
There's amazing people on here, yes. And all of you, I think, played an influential part on our growth and our being. And I think that's the way that we collect our knowledge and our experiences is from people and those heart conversations. And and all of you here have contributed to that in our growth and reflecting on Table Being United, most definitely. These powerful, beautiful faces. So good to see you. I hope I get to see you in person with a mask on and social distancing and everything.
I know. Invite me to a social distance feast, eh?
Right? We'll go to Tim's new house. Yes, please.
Lamb ribs for the Navajo.
Hey, Amber or Kitty, do either of you want to share? Otherwise, we're going to wrap up. And if there's any messages out there too on our meeting.
I just want to say thank you very much for the presentation is so thoughtful, and that sense of self-examination and what's necessary to be more complete. I really appreciate that. And I feel like, I don't know, I think I'd like to say this, and I hope it's not wrong, but I feel like in some ways the culture that I come from, which is the entitled culture and the culture that Geraldine is talking about, it is not reflective in the way that you're trying to be, and that your example for that is really very profound. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kitty.
Thanks, Kitty.
That's Elena's best friend, Corrine.
Tasha always says that.
The truth. I'm not lying.
My best friend, Elena.
Jerry's my best friend.
Hang on, Amber was just going to say
Well, I just want to say thank you. I actually have to get on another call, but I have so much respect for you, Corrine and Kathy. I haven't seen you guys in so long, and you're right up the road. But what really struck me is just your potent way of weaving magic and medicine into a lot of really practical information. I learned so much. I mean, I chatted that to you, and I just sent a chat to everyone, but you're such a profound teacher. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be here. And I miss you. I want to see you.
I want to shout out, Amber does some really profound trauma work in war-torn areas, and is one of the influential people in our work. So when you talk about the different levels that trauma comes into our bodies, our mind, our spirits, the neurobiology and all of that, and just this ancient practices and knowledge that really go into helping us recover and reclaim and heal, is a really powerful force in communities in Australia and Africa and other places, and also here, right, in New Mexico. And we're really blessed to be in connection with you, Amber. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I want to do more. I want to do more with you and with Tewa. So yeah.
Yes. Now we got time to brainstorm. You can't go anywhere now.
I can't.
Out of faith.
I know we're out of time, Corrine, but what I was going to ask you was to talk to the coronavirus, but we got to go.
Thank you, Amber. Look, let's take this time, and as we're all here, looking at the healing of the justice of what Corrine was talking about, planting those seeds. A lot of you are doing them in your reflective work, sharing that, you know, being brave, being courageous. But thank you so much, everyone, for being brave and getting on tonight, turning on your cameras to be vulnerable, to share from your heart. That's the medicine and the healing, and it takes a lot. But you planting those seeds, you know, and for those people that watch it, is the start of building and co-creating this utopia that we can't even imagine. As like Corrine was talking about, we're doing this, but I'm not sure what we're doing, but we're doing it. And we saw the little excerpts of what people were coming up through their creativity, the conversations, hard conversations. So with that,
I love you,
this
Mom
would
and
not
Harry.
be possible, not only without all of you, but without the wonderful Dr. Corrine Sanchez from Tewa Women United. Let's give it up for her.
Maybe Corrine should run for president of the United States of America.
Thank you, Corrine.
Yeah, I would vote for her.
Thank you, Corrine. We
I
love
love
you.
you all.
Everyone be
Have a
safe,
good
stay
night.
distant,
Bye.
wash your hands, you know, all that good stuff. Wear a mask. We love you, we love you, we love you. We'll see you on Friday for Narissa Bond. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a great good
interpreters.
night.
Thank you, interpreters.
Thank you, Corrine. We love you.
Thank you, Zoe, for staying over. And thank you, Chandra.
Thank you,
We love
Sandra.
you.
Thank you.
We'll see you back here
So-
Friday, Chandra.
Take care. Be